On the world news, 20 people killed and many wounded in Lebanon blast. And United Nations frowns at Israel about unlawful presence in the occupied West Bank. This is the world news. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the world news on Providence Television International. My name is Edna Caesar Garrick. And now the details. At least 20 people have been killed and 450 wounded in Lebanon in a new wave of blast related to communication devices, the Ministry of Public Health says, a day after thousands of pages used by Hezbollah detonated across the country. The attacks, which were widely believed to be carried out by Israel against Hezbollah, have raised fears that the two sides streaming conflict could escalate into all-out war. Speaking to Israeli soldiers on Wednesday, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said they will start a new phase in the war, saying it requires courage, determination, and perseverance. He made no mention of the explosions of the electronic devices on Tuesday and Wednesday, but praised the work of the Israeli army and security agencies. Multiple explosions were reported in Lebanon on Wednesday, saying pages devices exploded in Hezbollah stronghold in the western and southern Beirut, as well as in the eastern region of Bekaa, where 3 people were wounded. Reports say explosion in multiple locations, which is said were the result of walkie-talkies detonating. In Wednesday's attack, several blasts were heard at a funeral in Beirut for 3 Hezbollah members and a child killed by exploding pages the day before. Tens of thousands of people have left northern Israel since the start of the war in Gaza, triggered by Hamas-led attack on October 7 in southern Israel, where more than 1,100 people were killed and about 250 were taken captive. Israel has waged a brutal assault on the Gaza Strip since then, killing more than 41,000 people and reducing large swaths of the Palestinian territory to rubble. A 10-year-old Japanese student had died one day after he was stabbed near his school in southern China. The boy, who was enrolled at the Shenzhen Japanese school, succumbed to his injuries early on Thursday. His assailant, a 44-year-old man surnamed Zong, was arrested on the spot. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has called the attack extremely despicable and said Tokyo had strongly urged Beijing for an explanation as soon as possible. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian said the case was being investigated and that China and Japan were in communication. Mr. Lin confirmed the boy was a Japanese national with a Japanese father and a Chinese mother. The motive for the attack was not immediately known, but some observers have expressed concern that nationalist sentiment in China might be spilling into increased violence against foreigners. In June, a man targeted a Japanese mother and a child in the eastern city of Zhuhai. That attack was also near a Japanese school and led to the death of a Chinese national who had tried to protect the mother and son. Earlier in June, 4 American teachers were stabbed in the northern city of Jinling. Beijing has described all these attacks, including the one of Wednesday, as isolated incidents. And on Wednesday, Mr. Lin said China would continue to protect the safety of all foreigners in the country. Ties between the two countries have long been acrimonious. For decades, the two sides have clashed on a number of issues ranging from historical grievances to territorial disputes. The UN General Assembly has adopted a Palestinian draft non-binding resolution demanding Israel and its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory within 12 months. There were 124 votes in favor and 14 against, including Israel, along with 43 abstentions. As a non-member observer state, Palestine could not vote. The resolution is based on a July advisory opinion from the U.S. highest court that said Israel was occupying the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip against international law. The Palestinian ambassador called the vote a turning point in our struggle for freedom and justice, but his Israeli counterpart denounced it as diplomatic terrorism. Although the General Assembly resolutions are not binding, they carry symbolic and political weight given they reflect the positions of all 193 member states of the UN. It comes after almost a year of war in Gaza, which began when Hamas gunmen attacked Israel on 7th October, killing about 1,200 people and taking 251 others as hostages. More than 41,110 people have been killed in Gaza since then, according to the territory's Hamas-run health ministry. There has also been a spike in violence in the West Bank over the same period, in which the UN says more than 680 Palestinians and 22 Israeli have been killed. If you are just joining us, this is the World News on Providence Television International. The murder of Olympic runner Rebecca Cheptegei by her former partners has reignited calls for stronger action against femicide in Kenya. The 33-year-old Ugandan died days after being doused in petrol and set alight by her ex-boyfriend at her home in Trans Nzoia County in western Kenya. This is not an isolated incident. Kenya has one of the highest rates of violence against women in Africa. Reports say that in January alone, more than 10 women in the country were victims of femicide, defined by the UN as the killing of women because of their gender. A 2018 World Health Organization report suggested that 38% of women in Kenya aged between 15 and 49 had experienced violence from an intimate partner. Groups that offer support to survivors of gender-based violence say there has been a year-on-year increase in the number of cases. Sunita Kamela, UN women specialist on ending violence against women and girls in East and Southern Africa, says that women and girls of diverse background have been victims of femicide in a world marred by widespread gender discrimination and inequality. In the latest UN report on violence against women and girls, Africa accounts for the largest share with 20,000 women murdered. Away from the foreign scene now back home, the federal government of Nigeria, through the Department of Weight and Measurements under the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, has initiated a nationwide surveillance operation aimed at safeguarding consumers from products with misleading measurements. The department was established to ensure that facilities measure and weigh products accurately, preventing Nigerians from being shortchanged in the weigh and measurement they pay for. During a routine surveillance operation in Lagos State on Wednesday, the department visited Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited in Ijora and Olamagri in Igomo. Reports say the operation, which began in Abuja, aligned with President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda aimed at protecting Nigerians from being exploited by sellers and manufacturers through inaccurate measures. The Independent National Electoral Commission on Thursday morning began the distribution of sensitive materials to the 18 local government area in Edo State. The distribution is being done on the premises of the Central Bank of Nigeria at Apapakpava Junction, located at Ring Road, Benin City. The hired vehicles that will convey the materials to various locations are already stationed beside the CBN. The area was closed to commercial activities as buses plied one way to enter and exit the area. The State Resident Electoral Commissioner Onoha Anogbum supervised the distribution of the materials. He confirmed the development to journalists inside the central bank before the commencement of the distribution of the materials. Party officials were also there to monitor the distribution process. Despite the early morning drizzle, the distribution team moved under the canopy set up for other stakeholders to continue the process. The Police Service Commission officials monitoring team has arrived in Edo State ahead of the September 21st governorship poll in the state. In a press statement made available by PSC's head press and public relations, Ikechukwu Ani, on Thursday said the personnel would monitor the conduct of police officers during Saturday's governorship election in the state. And he said the team will be led by retired Deputy Inspector General DIG Taiwo Lakano, retired, and will include other high-ranking staff. He added that the monitoring of police conduct during the election is one of the Commission's obligations to ensure the sustenance of the nation's fragile democracy. He said, as the lead agency in internal security, which includes the security of election. The police in Edo election should exhibit strong leadership qualities expected of them. The Chief of Defense Staff (CDS) General Christopher Musa, the police and the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has warned those planning to foment trouble during Saturday's governorship election in Edo State to have a rethink or decisively dealt with. During his visit to troops in Edo State, General Musa stated that there is no going back on making the election free, fair and credible, while cautioning security personnel to be neutral and professional in their conduct. In the same vein, the Force Public Relations Officer ACP Muyiwa Adejobi has warned those not participating in the election to stay indoors because there will be no movement without a permanent voters card (PVC) during the election. Thanks for watching. That's our package. But before we go, let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines. Reported the report which said the mother of Olympic runner Rebecca Keptegei by her former partner has reignited calls for stronger action against femicide in Kenya. That 3-year-old Ugandan died days after being doused in petrol and set lighted by her ex-boyfriend at her home in Trans Nzoia country in western Kenya. We also told you that a 10-year-old Japanese student had died one day after he was stabbed near his school in southern China. The boy who was enrolled at the Shingen Japanese school succumbed to his injuries early on Thursday. His assailant, a 44-year-old man surnamed Nanzhong, was arrested in the sport. And finally, at least 20 people have been killed and 450 wounded in Lebanon in a new wave of blast related to communication devices. The Ministry of Public Health says a day after thousands of pages used by Hezbollah detonated across the country. The attacks, which were widely believed to be carried out by Israeli against Hezbollah, have raised fears that the two-side streaming conflict could escalate into all-out war. That's our package. Thanks for watching. Edna Sazagarik is my name. Good afternoon.